Hello guys, and these days Russia targets Ukraine with missiles produced in 2026. And believe me, this is an extremely important sign of the exhaustion inside Russia, not only their budget but even their weapon arsenals. And this is going to be an extremely important conversation between me, an ordinary Ukrainian, and you people who support Ukraine and who must make their decisions based on the real situation both here in Ukraine and in Russia. Because otherwise, some good people may keep pressuring Ukraine to surrender, and that's exactly what Putin wants. Understanding that during this first months of January, Russia's federal budget deficit is already 2 trillion rubles. He needs to print more money. Dozens of his regions are without electricity or heating, not because of Ukrainian attacks, but because of Russia's poverty and negligence. And the fact that they are using these freshly produced missiles is definitely a sign they are on the brink of the collapse. They cannot win this war, and our task is to remain united, to see these signs and to see the collapse of the Russian Federation sometime really soon. Don't be afraid of that. My name is Anna. I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see Putin in The Hague, subscribe and share these videos to spread the truth. You know that these days, when it is super cold in Ukraine, Russia uses to terrorize our civilian population. This war is no more a war on the front lines. Of course, heroes stay there, they keep the front line, but in reality, Russia cannot get anything. All they do is every day they target our kindergartens, our homes, our hospitals, trying to turn them into ashes, so that even Russian vloggers keep asking themselves, why do we need these burned territories? And the Ukrainian drones, the Ukrainian missiles now are able to reach deep inside the Russian area. Luckily for them, we observe the rules of the Geneva Convention and neutralize legitimate military sites, while Russians are using this, what they call general frost, to target the heating, the electricity infrastructure. And just before the recording of this video, another ballistic attack took place on Kyiv from Bryansk, the Russian Federation. But after each of such attacks, apart from problems with electricity and heating that sooner or later will be solved, we also look at the debris of those missiles and drones that they target on Ukraine. And since recently all of them are dated 2025 or 2026, which is a big change that not many will tell you about in this international media that are focused on the mood of Putin or Trump, which actually have nothing with the results of this war. It is decided here in Ukraine by the resilience of our people, and also in your hearts, in your minds, the way you support us and the way you speak about us. Another reason to subscribe and share. This helps a lot, and trust me, such small steps have changed a lot already. So this year of production, 2026, says us that the Kremlin has already used this eternal stockpiles of missiles that they have from the Soviet era, from the times of Cold War, because like a lot of their weapons, tanks, armored vehicles are produced back in Soviet times, including that Oryashnik that was literally simply renamed. But many believe that the first attack on Ukraine in 2014 was also because Russia had a lot of these free Soviet missiles and it had to utilize them destroying Ukraine, so they choose the most evil solution. But you have to understand that the fact that right now, at first they used in 2024-25, they used a lot of North Korean missiles, and that is also not a sign that everything is okay in their military production. But now these are X-missiles, X-101, that people analyzed this morning in Kyiv, in Kryvyi Rih, were produced in 2026. Russia is not capable to keep up with the speed that they want. And all of these efforts, all of this violence is just a desperate move of the Kremlin that by freezing us, they will make us surrender. Russians always make this grave mistake when they misread Ukrainians, when they think they know us. That's exactly what triggered the collapse of the Russian Federation with the failed blitzkrieg. And believe me, the only end of this war is the collapse of the Russian Federation as it is now, and Putin. And right now, Russians on their Telegram channels, on their websites, discuss which coup is more likely, a military one or a political one. They are not talking about agreements or appeasements that are so popular in the Western media. But the fact that they are burning literally the leftovers of their weapons, of their missiles, demonstrates this is the peak of their aggression, and they trust in this bad weather, the fact that Ukrainians are tired, the fact that White House does not act like a White House anymore. But this does not change the Ukrainian understanding that Russia is the enemy, that during these 4 years of war we became way stronger, and our task is to defeat and demilitarize this enemy when it is, and I won't be tired to repeat it because that is the truth, when the enemy is the weakest and the poorest ever. According to the Kremlin, the federal budget deficit is 2 trillion rubles. It is already in January. That is a sum of a deficit that they predicted for at least half a year, and they managed to achieve it during literally 1 January. So Putin is prepared to print more money, and you know it is deadly for any economy in any corner of the world. They have an empty federal wealth, national wealth fund. They have nowhere to take from. Taxes will simply speed up the collapse of businesses. Lukoil, Samolyot, Rosneft, Tatneft, Gazprom, Sberbank, all these companies that were richest of the rich are now destroyed by war, and Putin, with his oil and gas revenues halved, 50% less they managed to collect this year, and it will continue because Ukrainians choose the targets smartly. We choose legitimate things that destroy Russia's war machine. And they hope they can break our spirit, but they achieve the country. They achieve the country, and they keep making this mistake from decade to decade, from century to century. Because those of you who follow my channel a little bit, who read the news, who read the books about the history of Ukraine, know that this war actually lasts for centuries, at least 300 years. It was not provoked by NATO. Every Ukrainian, every Pole, every Belarus who knows the history of this land laughs when you say NATO provoked it. I'm sorry, my great-grandparents suffered from Moscow invasions long ago. NATO existed. Long ago, the United States shaped into an independent country. This literally lasts for centuries, and we know to be able to live our life normally, we need to destroy the imperial dream of Putin and millions, unfortunately, who support him. And the reality is on our side, because they have serious problems not only with economy, but these consequences have already reached their regions. Like right now, when it is same cold or even colder in Russia, Irkutsk, Smolensk, Belgorod are without heating, not because of Ukraine, but because they have no money to maintain heating, electricity in these regions. And literally every week there are more and more regions that go into cold or go into dark or go offline. And Starlink, Russians do not have Starlink anymore, and this is a great solution, inspired by the Ukrainian Minister of Defense, who found the right way to communicate it to Elon Musk. And you know what is my favorite comment all over the Ukrainian internet? That Russians constantly say they are fighting with NATO countries already. Russians are constantly saying they are fighting with the United States using Starlink, because the moment Starlink and American technology turned off, all of their troops collapsed. And that's a good moment for a counteroffensive from the Ukrainian side. Subscribe to witness what will happen next. And that's exactly what we see right now. They do not know what to do, how to react, and no plan B. Even though Putin and his mafia promised they would develop an analog of Starlink, no. All they can do right now is to threaten to nuke something in space so that all satellites go out of order. They won't do it, but that's the classical Russian reaction to more and more failures that amass. While ordinary Russian vloggers keep discussing the prices on cucumbers. Literally, that's a new flash mob in Russia, where people film the prices of how expensive everything became in their supermarkets, including ordinary cucumbers. And they exchange this surprise from region to region, understanding that they cannot afford basic things. And deep down inside their brain, they do know the reason is the failed blitzkrieg. But Putin keeps investing in it because he knows the end of this war will bring the end of this regime, and I honestly do not mind if both the end of this war with the Ukrainian victory will also end Putin's regime. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think is the thing that Russia lacks most? What do they lack most? Every answer is possible, and it will be interesting to see which will get most likes from our community. Follow me on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, and a new Substack platform where our community is growing quickly, and you will receive a weekly newsletter every Sunday, just as good media does. Check the merch shop new Spring Valentine collection that also reminds the war and resilience of the Ukrainian people is already in our merch shop. The link in the description of this video. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channels, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!